Now, we all know that the Amarr Empire is pretty rich. I mean, all of their ships have gold platings in them, and the Aeon is no exception to that, but it looks like they did run out of funds to complete the ship, so they built half of it and then they added hangars and called it a day. That's basically how the Aeon was built. Well, a joke aside, the Aeon is definitely one of the more interesting ships in the game. It has the potential to be the most heavily armored ship in the game, but we will see how this ship will perform in this video. As always, let's take a look at the ship trait description, and then we will go towards the build and towards the combat performance. The roll bonus is the same as with the other supercarriers. That is the universal thing for the ships, but I have to say that the roll bonus is really good. Advanced light fighter upgrade bonus will give you plus 15% light fighter damage, plus 15% light fighter optimal range, plus 5% light fighter weapon stability. Now that weapon stability perhaps means weapon optimal range, because it has some very good range with fighters. Both light and both the heavy ones have very good range on this ship. Heavy fighter pressure bonus will give plus 15% heavy fighter damage, plus 15% heavy fighter optimal range, and plus 5% heavy fighter weapon stability. Well, here you have the weapon range, so I guess it is not the stability thing. Advanced fighter bonus plus 40% EHP, plus 5% fighter flight velocity. Advanced carrier command will give you plus 4% armor resistance, plus 15% armor repair amount. Expert armored command burst will give you plus 5% armored command burst strength, plus 3% skirmish command burst strength, plus 100% command burst effective range. And expert jump drive plus 0.5 light year maximum jump range, and minus 5% jump drive capacity. And last one, advanced energy neutralizer burst operation bonus will give you plus 5% energy neutralizer burst projector neutralizing effect, and plus 5% energy neutralizer burst projector optimal range. The Aeon has 5 fighter slots, 2 high slots, 5 medium, 8 low, 4 combat, and 3 engineering rigs. 4,150 meter is the cargo hold capacity, decent fuel capacity. Primarily a armor tank, of course, since this is a Amarr ship. Fantastic capacitor, the best capacitor out of any other Supercapital. It can lock 10 targets. This thing is really big and really slow. Don't expect the Aeon to be winning any speed records, although it kind of looks like a snail if you look at it, which, you know, is actually quite appropriate for the ship since it is really slow. Now this is the energy neutralizer burst projector, and it neutralizes 18,750 gigajoule every cycle. The activation time is 10 seconds, and the effect lasts 10 seconds. So basically it does kill a lot of capacitor. Range is 250 km, optimal effective range 24, fall-off range 15. It also does eat a lot of capacitor in the medium slots, 1 scrambler, 1 web, and of course the special module as well as skirmish burst modules. And here you can take a look at the heavy fighters. Optimal range is 21.88 kilometers. However, their performance is a bit lower than performance on the Wyvern, although that's okay. You should still apply a lot of damage to the big ships. Dual armor pairs, 1 capacitor battery, the emergency damage control, and triple lattice as well as 1 reactive. This is the classic build that I like to use on these ships so far. As for the rigs, this is where the madness begins. This is a 4P integrated combat build, and ironically the integrations cost less than the ship, so yeah, that's kind of funny to... That is actually quite hilarious when you think about it. And the classic capacitor rigs in the engineering rig slots. Well, 73, 85, 83 and 83% resistance. This is in the station, 6.1 million armor hit points. This thing is a brick. Has a lot of armor and a lot of resistance. It is built to basically withstand a lot of firepower. And with this ship you can use the thermocirculation or the bombard tactic. Both are fantastic. If you like tank, then the thermocirculation is the way to go. You can get extra 20% resistance, and you can also improve the armor repair. You can also enhance the armor plates depending on what type of build you like to do, and let's undock and let me show you how much resistance I can get out of this ship. But first, as always, these things use a lot of fuel, and always make sure that you have enough fuel to sustain these ships. However, the special module will still require more fuel than you can hold, basically, and you can have more than 53 cycles of the module, of the special high slot modules, which is something that you should keep in mind. They do eat a lot of fuel, and even if you are fully stocked up on fuel, it will probably not be enough throughout the whole combat. You can basically have over 99 cycles on this ship.
Undocking.
Yeah, and actually, you can have that on any Supercapital to be more accurate. All right, well, let's undock and let me show you the active stats of this thing. Now, as usual, the module out here is going to be a big mess. Unfortunately, that's just how it is, and that's just how it goes. But hopefully they do expand the module list. They can fit a bit more modules there, I'm fairly sure. And we kind of need that, since these things have so many modules. So you have to get used to using the 2 pages for these supercarriers. I know, can get a bit messy, but it is what it is. Basically have to get used to that. Alright. Let's boot up all the things, and let me show you the 43,000 DPS. That's pretty good. 84 million hit points. 92, 94, 95, 94, and 94. Really, really tanky, and that's definitely not going to die. These things are not dying really easily. You need a lot of firepower to bring one of these monsters down. 12 minutes is the capacitor runtime, which can be expanded because you are not going to be using that that's armor repair at all times. And you can even add some units for the capacitor battery for Nosferatus and things like that, which, you know, in results will mean that you will have a very, very, very tanky ship. Now, you can add the normal damage control, which will enhance. You can basically use it actively, and in some cases the normal damage control has an advantage over the capital one. The capital one is literally a emergency button if your tank falls down, but with the normal damage control you can actively use it, since the ship will definitely not die in 5 minutes. It takes a lot of firepower to bring one of these ships down. So technically you can use the normal damage control actively on this thing. And here you can take a look at the active stats: 78 million hit points, 91, 94, 93, and 94% resistance. And I'm honestly pretty happy with that. You also have the damage control that you can activate. It has a 180-second cooldown, but 231 million hit points, 97, 98, 98, and 98% resistance on 6.5 million armor hit points. Yes, pretty tanky, and yes, this is going to last a very, very, very long time. You can even do a full-on chunk build with the plates. I'll do that in this video just to show you what it can do. My more normal build has some fighter arrays, micro-observe, and the DPS module for the fighters. This is basically what I would use, since you already have a pretty good tank. I mean, look at the stats, you don't need a lot of adaptives there. Basically 2 adaptives should be enough for most cases, and you should add one damage mod for the fighters and 1 micro-observe guide, just so that you can enhance the fighter DPS a bit more, although the DPS is already pretty good on the heavy fighters. But for the light fighters, you want to enhance them as much as possible. Extra speed can hurt. Extra speed means that your fighters can catch more ships, which is going to be important in some certain situations, especially if you unfortunately get tackled by something. You want to be able to defend against the tackle. 60 million hit points, 88, 93, 92, and 93% resistance. Again, this is still ridiculously tanky. 51,849 DPS. And the fighters go a bit fast once the module is activated, 5.6 km per second, which is really solid speed. Alright, well, so far this thing looks really good. And you can do something like this with a passive armor tank. This build is more for a fleet when you have a logistic or two, or you know, a big capital fleet where you have a lot of logistics to repair you. Will be very difficult to go through 7.5 million of armor at this resistance. And this is the cold stats. Let me undock and let me show you the active stats. Can be even higher. And if you have some Nestor Guardians, if you have some other armor Guardians, then your armor will be even more increased and enhanced. And if they have the armor implant, then yeah, even more tank. So you can roll a 99% tank, a passive tank, armor tank on the Aeon in a fleet if everyone does their job correctly. And this means that this thing will be nearly impossible to kill. Basically, in such a fleet you have to focus the Guardians and the Logis first, and then you have to leave the Supercapitals at the end. 72 million hit points, 8 million armor, 88, 93, 92 and 93% resistance. Honestly pretty good, pretty solid. And you also get some pretty good DPS to go along with the ship. I would say the micro warp drive guide might be more important than the damage mode, so you can actually go with dual micro warp drive guides. And you can do something silly like this with full on adaptives, plates, and there's also that damage control, which means that now I'll have the maximum possible resistance, and it's going to be quite hilarious to see the numbers that I can get on this thing. If I really go and aim just to get the maximum number of hit points, I can get 500 million hit points easily. If I want to on the extenders, on the plates, I can easily do something like that, but it's not going to be that. Might be good for a bait actually, but besides that, I don't know, perhaps a fleet or something. But a build like this is definitely more usable. Again, a build for a fleet, CTA fleet, where you have a lot of logistic ships, a lot of Guardians, where you don't have to worry about repairing your own armor, but you have to be careful not to lose your logistic ships. 101 million hit points, let's see, 92, 95, 94, 94. Yeah, this is pretty good. I mean, there's just no denying, this is just a brick tank. This is really way too tanky, and I love it. Now, I talked about the DPS build before, and let's replace the rigs. Now I will add some DPS rigs to the Aeon. Now, as with the Wyvern, you can do a DPS build if you like, both work. You can also do a cheaper tank build, also works. But since these ships are kind of special, and since they are quite expensive, you want to maximize the performance. And which means you can do integrations. Basically, you can do any type of build that your wallet allows you to. Now, this is one of the possible DPS builds that you can run, and I have 62,000 hit points, 60,000 DPS. One of the builds that you can use is this one: triple damage mods, one micro object guide, one adaptive, dual plates, and the special damage control. And it will give you 22 million hit points. You will still have some pretty good armor stats since I already have the thermocirculation active. However, you have a lot of different ways to do a build like this. We can add more adaptives, damage control, and a plate. We can also add one armor repair or dual armor repairs, and one adaptive and one damage control, dual armor repairs, or a capacitor battery. There is honestly so many ways that you can build this ship, that in the end it really does come down to player preference. I'll show you some of the different variations that you can use here for both PvP and PvE. And so far this is looking pretty good, pretty solid. However, the build that I like is something like, well, something like this. I prefer to have some armor repairers, and let's undock. I want to show you the active stats of this ship. Let's stop and let's activate all the modules. The command burst is definitely very useful. I like to use the command burst to enhance the armor. It can be useful for solo. It can also be useful in a fleet. It really depends on what type of ship you want to build. And still some pretty good tank, although not nearly as good as the previous build, but you know, still pretty solid. 94,000 hit points, which with the bomber tactic plan is close to 300,000 DPS. and that is honestly really good. And now let me go to the bombard tactics. This is the implant that still works, but as I mentioned before, they might change that and it might be drone exclusive, and fighters and light ships might get their own unique implant. We will see what will happen with that, but so far the drone bombs have been working really well and I have absolutely no issues with them. However, I have to admit the drone bombs are currently the most overpowered implant in the game, and definitely worth to get and use until it gets nerfed, since you will have a lot of fun using them. They are at the moment really good, and as I mentioned, one of the most overpowered implants in the game. Now let's take a look at the tank. Well, the tank will be about the same, just lower, just a bit lower. I lost about 5 million hit points. Yeah, nothing much, and just 5 million hit points up and down. You know, however, the thermocirculation implant does definitely help a lot at the tank purpose if you want to use the ship as a tank. But you still have like a lot of options to go with this ship. I would personally use the thermocirculation for PvP and the bombard tactic for PvP, especially if I am in a fleet. But for a camp, I would still remain with the. I'll still probably use the thermocirculation just to be safe, you know. Although in reality, you really need a huge fleet to break the tank on one of these ships. You're definitely not killing one of these ships in 60 seconds. That's not going to happen. That's definitely not going to happen, because they are just that tanky. And if you know how to build them, then it is not going to be a big problem to tank. Now you might be wondering, what am I doing here? Why am I warping to the sun? Well, I kind of want to show you how that new damage control works in combat on a Supercapital, and I want to show you what type of how a Supercapital versus Supercapital fight might look. Now, two Supercapitals with both using equal skills are probably not going to be able to do much to each other, because they're both way too tanky and they can't kill each other. But I'll be showing you how some fights can happen, and well, it just so happens that there is a Wyvern just chilling on the sun and enjoying the view. And well, let the games begin. Focus fire on both. You can see the Wyvern's point of view in the lower left corner of the screen, and well, all the modules are active. The Wyvern is a passive shield tank, the Aeon is a active armor tank. Now the main difference between these two ships is the tank type. The Aeon prefers armor, the Wyvern prefers shield, and you can tank about 160,000 DPS passively with the Wyvern because of its amazing shield regeneration capabilities. And if you enhance that with adding shield extenders, you automatically also extend the shield recharge rate. So the Wyvern definitely prefers a more passive way of combat. While the Aeon also has the same shield regeneration, it is not as tanky in the shield as the Wyvern. The Wyvern has a bonus on shield, so that's why I prefer to use the armor tank on the Aeon. But the Wyvern will not suffer from any capacitor related problems, because it has no active way of boosting shield. And honestly, in most cases, it doesn't really have to boost the shield actively. You can easily tank a whole fleet just by passively tanking your ship, and this is the magic of the Supercarriers. their shield regeneration hasn't been reduced. You could do something very similar with the cruisers, but that was quickly fixed, or should I say quickly nerfed. And I honestly hope that eventually they do return that. I mean, I already talked about this before, but they will definitely buff that at one point. And the Wyvern is slowly losing shields. Now don't worry, this is not going to take 8 years. However, if this was a real fight, it would take a long time. Well, technically it is a real fight, but I control the outcome of this fight, since I want to show you how the new damage control works when you hit hull. And you will see that on the Wyvern in the lower end of the screen. I tried to place the recordings side by side on the same big screen, but it did not work for some reason. It just kept crashing and crashing, so I just had to do something like that. Basically, put two screens on the main one, or put the Wyvern screen on the main one. And here you can take a look at the tank. Also, we'll show you the tank on the Wyvern. Both are tanky ships. The Wyvern has DPS rigs because I don't want to lose the integrations, because I like to swap the integrations between the Supercapitals. Saves time when I build them, since the same integration setup works on all of them. In terms of build, you can easily interchange the integrations between your Dreadnought and between your Supercapital. If you had a tank build, it will work the same way. You don't have to get any new rigs. So that's actually perfect the way it is. So so far, that's what I like about these ships. Now, if the fight were to take, let's say, 5 hours, then eventually the Aeon would lose capacitor, and the Aeon would actually lose, because the Aeon can't break the passive tank of the Wyvern. But the Wyvern does need capacitor to recharge its shield. However, the Aeon does need capacitor because of the armor repairs. So in the very, very long run, and I actually might do a live stream and just put these ships to fight each other, and then I go to bed, and then when I wake up, we will see which one of these ships is alive and which one died. But in my theory right now, the Wyvern would win, because its passive shield regeneration definitely will win over the active armor repair of the Aeon. Mostly because the Aeon would eventually run out of capacitor. Even if I add the Nosferatus, when the Wyvern runs out of capacitor, it will still have the passive tank, while the Aeon will have no capacitor to leech from, and well, it will have a slow and a painful death. And that's basically how passive tanking works. You don't need capacitor. Basically, you can save the capacitor for electronic warfare, for example. You can do a lot of different things with it. And well, as you can see, both of the ships are tanking really well. The Wyvern would definitely tank much more if it were equipped with the tank rigs, but it isn't. It has DPS rigs, so definitely would tank a lot more. You can even add the integration rigs focused on maximum shield volume. That will enhance the passive regeneration even more. You can theoretically give the Wyvern about 15 million shield hit points, and it will still recharge in 3600 seconds. And that can tank a lot of damage. So that's one of the ways how to build these ships. Now, I got bumped. Not really sure what happened, but both ships just started to move at the speed of light, which I find kind of funny. I think it's because both of them were basically at zero, and they kind of bumped each other. So they bumped each other and they sent themselves flying through space at the speed of light, which is kind of funny. Now, I did turn off the adaptives on the Wyvern because I don't want to be here for 8 hours until one of these ships dies. So when the Wyvern hits hull, I will go and activate that special damage roll. Now, the special damage roll has a very nice bonus on these ships. It basically lasts 280 seconds. So it does last for a couple minutes, and for those couple minutes you will be taking hull damage. Your resistance will be 97%, which, you know, can give you some pretty good time to get support, or well, it just prolongs the time for your ship to get destroyed. Now, since you have four rig slots on these ships, you can technically do 3 rigs for shield or armor, and then you can do 1 integration for hull. And that's something that I was thinking about with the Wyvern. Basically, you add 3 integrations to enhance your shield and armor, basically to get a really good shield or armor tank, and then that 1 integration for hull, basically maximum hull volume combined with maximum hull resistance. Because, you know, you can actually hull tank for a while on these ships. And if your main tank fails, you have the backup tank on hull, basically the last resort, and you can tank for about 5+ minutes on hull alone, which should buy enough time for support, or well, it just prolongs the death sentence for the ship. So that's one idea that you can do. Basically combine a fantastic shield and shield or armor tank, and then add a emergency hull tank on the 4th rig. A very good idea. Could be a very smart idea. I'm not saying hybrid tank. No, the hull tank is just a emergency backup. Basically full passive. You have the rigs mostly for armor and or shield, and the modules are also shield or armor depending on the ship that you're flying. And then if that fails, you have the 5+ minutes of hull tanking with the extra damage control. Can be smart, can be a good idea. I will actually do that in the next Supercapital video that I will do, just out of curiosity to see how that will go. I think it might be a very good idea. There's a lot of interesting things that they can do. And I'll do it, since I want to give you guys as much information as possible on how to build these things. And there are new ships. There's new builds to explore. You can do a lot of interesting things with the engineering rig, since you also have 4 slots. Also gives you a lot of opportunities to experiment with. And perhaps actually I'll do the same thing with the engineering rigs, but the combat rigs on these ships are definitely the most fun ones, because of the emergency hull tank that you can pull off only in emergency. I'm not saying hull tank your 1 trillion ship. No, that's just a emergency damage control that can be a last resort to try and save your ship. So if you ever end up attacking one of these ships, and if you break their tank, the real combat starts when you hit hull, because if they have a proper build, they'll have a very, very good hull tank as well, which is again a emergency hull tank. Now the Wyvern's shield got penetrated, and now I'm slowly doing some armor damage. Surprisingly, you would expect a cavalry ship to just fold when you go into armor. Well, since they have so much hit points, they have so much armor, so much shield, it will still take a while to go through the armor, but definitely the armor is falling down faster than the shield. The shield on that thing is ridiculous. I mean, the passive tank, you can combine the passive and the active at the same time. 1 booster would be enough, but a passive tank is definitely the way to go with the Wyvern. Since it has so much hit points, it is really not easy to go through that thing, and that makes these things very interesting. The game now, when I'm flying these ships, I feel like I'm playing Evoline because of that passive shield tank, and I love it. Again, developers, if you're watching this, and I know you are, buff the passive tank on all ships. It is really fun, and will give us players a lot more builds to play around with. Alright, well, the panic button will be activated on the Wyvern, and watch the DPS stop. There we go. Now, the Wyvern is into panic emergency modes, or into panic modes, hull tanking. It has 1.7 million hit points on the hull, and 97% hull resistance. If I had that fourth combat rig for hull, this thing would have like 99% resistance on all damage types. And yeah, that will allow for some pretty crazy tank. Honestly, I have to say it does work really well. This is one of the most unique modules that I have ever seen in the game, and it does seem to do its job. They have a bonus on that module, so your active duration time will be maximized. Now, this might be... This can save your ship. I'm not saying that you're doomed if you hit hull. I mean, it really depends on the situation. It does give a huge tactical advantage in PvP. I feel like when these ships start getting used for real large-scale combat, that this module will be hilarious to use. The capital battles will be much longer, and will depend on the fleet composition and on the fleet commanders that operate the fleet, and of course will also depend on the pilots who fly these ships. But my ears are getting pierced by the whole screech alert. Yeah, it's one way to give someone anxiety. Just play the hull alert. Just play the hull alert over and over and over again. Yeah, that's not something pleasant, but I got used to it by now. Although my alarm for the wake up on my phone is actually the hull alert. Wakes me up every time, and I never missed the alarm clock ever since I added the hull alert as my ringtone. You hear that? You're going to be woken up. No matter what kind of deep sleep you have, you hear the hull alert, you are going to be woken up by that. And so far, that hull tank is holding. It is impressive how long the hull in that thing lasts now. I mean, this is probably not the first time that most of you guys probably see this module in action, but this is how it actually works in combat. Now, a word on the high slot modules, the special modules. They are honestly quite interesting. The Supercarrier modules. Now, this is basically how the Titan Doomsdays will look. You will have a high slot. It will be a high slot. I think this is confirmed at the moment. The Doomsday on the Titan will be a high slot in a very similar way as the new modules on these ships are also in the high slot. So you will have a Titan, and you will have the main turret slots for the lasers, railguns, depending on what Titan you fly, and then you will have 1 or 2 slots for the Doomsdays. You have the area AoE Doomsday, basically wipes anything around you in a 200 kilometer radius, or you have the focused beam Doomsday, which will delete whatever you're looking at, because that thing will do so much damage. I can only imagine how much damage the Doomsdays will do. It will be hilarious to see those in action. And yes, I promise you, I will be doing Titan versus Titan.
We're under attack.
They will be plowing at each other with Doomsdays until one of them blows up. That's basically what I plan to do, and it will be fun. And there goes the Wyvern. Let's look at the fireworks. How will these ships explode? That's what I'm excited about. Big ships make big, pretty explosions, and there goes the Wyvern. The warp core has been destroyed and the ship is now a wreck. Well, how much is a Supercarrier kill mail worth, you might ask? Well, we're about to find out. They should be about around 1 trillion, depending on what kind of build you have. This is how the Wyvern wreck looks. A very good looking model. They did a fantastic job with the models of these ships and of all ships in the game. But yeah, there goes a Wyvern, probably the first one that you see exploding. And let's see how much they are worth. 863 billion is, yeah, that's quite expensive. That's quite expensive. This is basically what you can expect the kill to look when you see one of these ships get destroyed at one point in the game. Well, that was fun. Definitely tanky ships. If I didn't turn off the adaptives, we would be here for a whole day, and the only ship that would have died would be the Aeon, because, well, because passive tanking, passive shield does beat active armor in this case. That's just how the ship was built. And that's just how these ships are working. Honestly, pretty fun to fly ships so far. Now let's do some PvE with these monsters. As with the Wyvern, don't do PvE without having the light fighters equipped, because the heavy fighters are good against big ships, but in PvE they are not going to do much against small targets, and you also want to have some form of protection against tackle. I know you have like 50 stabs, but you don't want to rely on the stabs, you want to be able to rely on the ship, so having a way of defending yourself against tackle ships is always a very good thing to do. Now, I mentioned this before, but they really should do something about this. Well, you can see how long it takes to load these damn fighters in this ship. It takes a decade, and you have 5 tube slots and 12 fighters each, so yeah. It does take a while for this thing to load up with fighters, but if the developers are looking at this, they will take notes, and they will know what to fix. This almost needs improvement because it takes so long to load the fighters. It's not even funny. This is the most annoying part about flying the carriers and supercarriers. The fact that you have to wait a decade for the fighters to load in. Yeah, that's the most annoying part about these ships, and these ships are also quite expensive, so losing them is definitely going to make some folks angry, especially if you have the faction ones. If you have the faction heavy fighters, they will be doing about 500,000 DPS easily. So yeah, but they also cost 2-3 billion per fighter, so you can expect a huge price on the total ship value. So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind. And here I'll just add one micro warp drift guide, and now the ship is ready for PvE. Alright, well, let me see if I have a laboratory. Oh, I have a laboratory mission. Wonderful. Let's unlock and let's do the laboratory mission. Now, these ships are, well, I don't want to say that you should use them for PvE, but they definitely do have some advantages over the normal carriers. For example, you can warp anytime, you don't have any special mode to worry about. Basically, just lock launch fighters and shoot if something pops in. Always be aligned, by the way. If something pops in, you click warp and you warp out. That's just how it goes. No siege mode, no sensor mode, no network mode, nothing to prevent you from warping for 2 minutes. So this is one clear advantage that these ships have over the normal carriers, which have that sensor mode. However, these ships are massive, they're huge, they're enormous, and you can't dock in normal stations with them. So if you fly them, make sure that you are parked nearby a ITC in low-sec or null-sec. You don't want to be caught without permissions to dock. I can see this happen. I can see players lose permissions to dock inside a citadel, and then basically they are stranded in space. Not something that I want to experience, and not something that a lot of you guys want to experience as well, because I think that's the worst way to lose these ships. Imagine if someone just prevents you from docking in your station, and then you're stranded outside basically with no other way to go. You can't dock in a classic NPC because the ship is too fat, and then you see locals spiking up, and then you see ships start landing on you and start tackling you. That is literally the worst way to go, and that's why I'm saying be very careful where you dock these ships. Make sure that you trust the corporation or the alliance that you're in, and make sure to have a emergency bailout plan at all times. Basically, make sure that you have a sign alt nearby a ITC that is within jumping range, so that if something goes wrong, you can simply jump out to safety. That is one of the ways how you can keep the ships safe. However, since they are fresh, they're big, everyone wants to kill one, I would be very, very careful for the first, I don't know, for the first couple months, because these ships will be on the menu for a lot of fleets, and you don't want to be the first one to lose any of the Supercapitals. So that will be my advice on how to keep these ships alive. Make sure that you trust the Corp, the Alliance, and always have a escape bailout plan if things go wrong. You have a lot of time to jump through the silo to the desired ITC, because you know you can dock in the ITC and no one can revoke permissions in the ITC, so you basically can do that to save your ship, which means you have to be close nearby to a ITC station in order to be able to jump, or you know, 2 jumps, and perhaps a cloaking device might not be a bad idea. If you know, in some cases might be a good idea to be able to cloak while your Sino alt is traveling from system to system to reach the ITC. So yeah, that's one of the idea how to not lose the ships. Although even if you get jumped, you have a good chance to survive because you have a lot of hit points, you have a lot of tank, you have a lot of DPS. So if you know what you're doing, then you have a good chance to kill the tackle ships and then warp out before the rest of the fleet arrives. However, you have to be careful. Still, in the end, just don't get tackled. That's the best way to survive. Just don't get tackled. Now, the PvE performance, well, as with the Wyvern, it's going to be pretty good. I mean, carriers are already known to be one of the best ships for this job. A lot of players use them for ratting in allsec, and they are making a lot of very nice ISK.
Enemy ships detected.
The supercarriers can easily be used for a fleet operation. They can easily be used for any fleet related combat, since they are meant to be used as fleet ships. They are not something that you should be using completely solo, or if you are already using solo, make sure that you have an alt for, you know, for the quick escape. In order to use the Sano, you have to be away from any scramblers, you have to be away from any webs, and you have to be away from any bubbles. You can't jump through a bubble, but you can jump into a bubble. Some things to keep in mind. All that has been tested out. And so far I think with the revelation I did a pretty good job. However, with these ships soon to be crawling around, you will have to be careful. If you are camping with dreadnoughts, you have to be very careful now, because these ships will probably have a lot of DPS when they come, and you will not be able to tank those beasts for a very long time. So you have to be really careful at what you are doing. The new damage control can help the dreadnought as well, but it doesn't last nearly as long as it can last with the carriers and with the faction carriers, because the faction carriers also do get a I forgot what I forgot what was what I was about to say. Oh well, anyway, never mind. Overall, the main thing that's important to note here is that the new damage control is going to be very useful for the capitals in general.
We're under attack. We're under attack.
Overall, the performance of the Aeon is pretty good. I still have to decide which one of these ships is going to be the tankiest. I don't know. I would probably say the Wyvern might be the tankiest, but not really sure how that will go. I mean, still have to test out the Hell and still have to test out the Nyx. And how will that go? I have no idea, but I do expect these ships to be quite interesting to use. Okay, this might be the last wave. Yeah, it is the last wave. Okay, wave 5 out of 5. Well, I don't know what else to say about the Aeon. It has been performing well. The tank is definitely spot on. The DPS is a little bit lower than the DPS on that other Supercarrier that I tested out. The Wyvern has about 101,000 DPS. This has 94,000 DPS with the same build and with the same fighters. I mean, they already said that the Wyvern will have the highest DPS, while the Aeon will have the electronic warfare capability, and it will also have the tank to go along with it. Which honestly, I'm fine with it. Been a solid one so far with these ships, which makes me, you know, think which one should I get if I ever decide to get one. I think I'll probably go with the Wyvern. I like how it looks, and most importantly, I also do like the passive tank on the ships. The passive tank is something that I really like about these new ships, and passive tanking for the shield tank Supercapital is definitely one very nice way to go with. Well then, that was the Aeon. Again, a very solid ship. Had a lot of fun flying it. Honestly, very surprising how fun these ships actually are. If you would like to see more, and if you want to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. It does help out a lot. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.